Welcome back to the It's Just Sport podcast, League of Her Own. I'm Joanna Verdon.
I'm Niamh Talon, and today we are welcoming Caoimhe Dempsey. She is the latest winner of the Oxford Cambridge boat race and was in the Cambridge boat. After last year's cancellation, how was it finally to get out there and race?
It was the most ready I've ever been for any race in my whole life. It was so good. Like last year we were nervous, we were nervous about racing, and this year we were just so excited to get out there because it had just been such a long time coming, and especially because 7 of the 9 of us in the boat had been in the boat last year, so it was a real sense of like we've all been working for this together for so long, and then just put all that together into a really exciting race was more than we could have asked for. Yeah, we were so happy.
How cool is it to be a part of like such a like prestigious like race? Like my brother went to university in Bath, I went to university in York, and like all everyone talks about is like that boat race. So like what's it like to be a part of like something so historic?
Yeah, it's so weird because it's like nobody really cares about rowing races, except this race. And it's just because it's like a cultural thing, I guess. It's really exciting to be part of it. Like people, the BBC are interested in it. People are like, it's like the most interest there'll ever be in an amateur rowing race anywhere, probably. So that's fun, I suppose. But more so than that, it's just really nice to be part of something that has so much history to it, and like the past crews and like the alumni of the club, they care so much about it, and they really, really want you to succeed, and there's so much support for the current athletes, and yeah, the like sense of community within the club is so strong, and that's kind of the most exciting part, I think.
Really like ridiculous fun fact is that I was supposed to go to Cambridge for my year abroad. So I could have been like
Oh,
really
nice.
close to like crazily rooting for you on the sideline.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah,
I told her we can get her out to Cox at some stage, but yeah, we'll see how that goes.
I'm not smart or cool enough to be in Cambridge or Oxford. Like I don't fit that bill whatsoever.
everybody says that, don't worry, it's okay.
What was it like in relation to COVID? Like how hard was it training? Because I know there are a lot of people saying, that you were all kind of training at home and that type of thing. And obviously, I know you said just before that you had 4 weeks on the water, but it's not an easy task.
Yeah, it was a really obviously difficult year and coming in and out of lockdown. So we started the season normally, and then we had that first lockdown in October, November. And that was okay because it was like a definite 4 weeks in the UK. We knew we were coming out after 4 weeks. So, you can erg in your bedroom for 4 weeks. You can get through that. And then the one after Christmas was a lot harder for sure because we didn't know how long it was going to be for. We didn't even know if we were going to get to race because everything was so bad. So that definitely was more difficult, and we were waiting for this application from the government to come back to see whether or not we would get an exemption to do the race. So we were kind of all like, okay, just one more week, just one more we can get through, just one more, without any kind of understanding of when we'd be coming out of it. So that definitely was harder. But I was really lucky that I was in a team, which definitely helped. I mean, my hat goes off to all the girls that were in like college accommodation where their erg was just in their bedroom, and they wake up and they sit at their desk and then they sit at their erg and then they go back to their bed, and it's all within a space of 3 meters. So it was definitely really challenging, but I think it's like it's like it goes to the I suppose the team that we were in, that we were able to get through that. I think it probably would have been more difficult if we had a different group of people, but I guess the characters and the atmosphere that we had within the team was just really, luckily, just a really positive group, and yeah, everyone just felt, I guess from the outset, our coaching perspective was just like, we were really lucky to be able to do any of this, like just enjoy every day that we get, because it could be cancelled at any moment, like we experienced last year. And so that the kind of approach of just trying to enjoy the process regardless of whether or not we're actually going to get to have a race, that kind of, I think, helped us get through as well.
How like did you like personally stay like motivated? Like as you said kind of earlier, like you didn't exactly know like if it was going to go through. You saw the exemption last year, as it got cancelled. So like you're sitting in like your room, your apartment, whatever it may be, and like you're going from your desk, you know, to your training facility, which, as you said, is 3 meters away. You know, like, do you ever just kind of like get like stay in bed and you're like, no, it actually might get cancelled. Why am I doing this nonsense?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It definitely was really hard some days. And like I said, I had some of the other girls in the team to train with, which definitely helped me. And I'm so grateful for them to just have people dragging you out of the bed and be like, come on, we need to get outside and to whatever. And yeah, we put a lot of effort into like everybody logging on to Zoom and just doing the ergs together. You know, we've got like just having other people on the Zoom, but like just I guess having a sense that there are other people there that if you don't show up, they're gonna know, and that kind of thing. That really helped. And yeah, I think just kind of remembering why we're doing it was really important. You know, thinking about I guess not having the race last year was a motivator, because you know. You just assume that you're going to race. You know, you couldn't really, for me anyway, I couldn't really deal mentally with the prospect that we weren't going to have a race. So I kind of ignored that possibility altogether, and assuming that we were going to race. And I didn't want to get to the start line having had it taken away from me last year and feeling like I'd given anything other than 100%. So yeah, that definitely was what was getting me through as well. Yeah.
Good to hear that you guys are doing Zoom ergs as well, because I know there's a lot of people that aren't best pleased about doing them, but are sucking it up for the time being. It was a pretty tight race. How exciting was it to be in the boat? And I know obviously Oxford were getting called for their steering and that type of thing, and the lead swapped a couple of times. So what was it like?
Yeah, it was really exciting, and we put on a good entertainment show, I think, compared to normal. Yeah, it was it was like mentally it's quite tough during the race, you know, because we do an awful lot of visualization in Cambridge. So we will do things like we'll all sit down together as a crew in the cox, we'll call through the race, and we'll go through all the different race scenarios. So we'll go things like catching a crab off the start, or you know, there being loads of blade clashes like we had, or you know, anything like that. So I think that really helped us prepare for what actually happened, which was very hectic race. And so, you know, we normally we stay internal for the first 90 seconds of the race, and we don't look at Oxford, we don't think about Oxford at all, because we just use that time to really establish our rhythm and focus on us. And then after that, we look out, and Dylan says, okay, you know, we're one seat up, we're one seat back, and then we can move from there. And so that was a really good starting point for us, and I think that was helpful. But then almost immediately we just started coming into these blade clashes, and the Oxford Cox, she was aggressive. Is how I would describe it. You know, and you don't know what they've been told by their coaches, you know, what to do, because it's a new course for everybody. And so arguably there is faster water in the middle because it's deeper. So I mean, I can see why she wanted to do that. And she was brave in terms of she wasn't really listening to the warnings that she was being given. And I think it did stand to their crew. I think it got them a margin probably closer than maybe, anyway, it was a very close race because of it, I think, because there was an awful lot of coming in and coming out, and every time we came into a blade clash, you know, we lost a few seats. So, you know, that obviously was working. But I think just having had the preparation of, you know, mentally talking about blade clashes, practicing blade clashes, and like how you step out from that and move on to your rhythm again afterwards, that was really what won us the race. Because after we got through that period of, it was like 4 minutes or so of coming in and out and having loads of contact, you know, the second half of the race we were able to just, you know, regroup, I suppose, and get back together, and it definitely helped, like it being our home stretch, and we knew, you know, it's a very basic stretch of water, but we knew the tiny landmarks that we had, and that was really helpful in the second half of the race to know, you know, like after training there every single day for 2 years, when you see that one bush, like, okay, I know I can get there from here, I know I can do this, and yeah, I guess we kind of just decided to kind of just put the foot down in the second half of the race and focus back in on ourselves and get the job done. Yeah.
How like dead are you after like a race like that? Because not only obviously is that physically demanding, but to be dealing with collisions, to be dealing with like the aggressive people in the other boat, like that kind of thing. I read somewhere, I think it was probably the book about the West Cork rowing, and I think they basically said that like physically in 1,000 like a kilometer like boat race is the equivalent to playing 3 basketball games like in a row, which blew my mind. So like how dead are you after?
Yeah, you're pretty dead after like 1 minute, I'm not gonna lie. You're like, okay, 16 more minutes to go. Yeah, it's really, really hard for sure. But I guess that's just what we train for, and we've done so many 5Ks on the erg, and we've done so much practice of that distance, and it's different to 2K racing for sure, which is like the Olympic distance for rowing. It's a completely different physiology, and I had to get used to that when I came here because I hadn't had any focus on that previously in any of my training. But yeah, I guess you just get used to the pain, and you look forward to it in a way, I suppose, because if you're able to put yourself in that place, you're going to get the best out of your performance. So it's not enjoyable at the time, but afterwards,
And you get the win, it's way more enjoyable anyways. You're like,
Exactly.
oh, totes worth it. My legs may be falling off me, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Tell us
Someone can
how
carry me
you
out of the boat, but it's okay.
tell us how you came to go over to Cambridge, and obviously we've had a few Irish athletes go over there before. Did you chat to some of them? Obviously recently enough we had Claire Lamb over there. Did you chat to Claire and ask her what it was like?
Yeah, I kind of hadn't. I mean, if you told me when I was in Trinity that I was going to go, I wouldn't have. It was not something that was on my plan. But I think my first kind of encounter with it was one of my novice coaches in Trinity, Susanna Cass, did her undergrad in Cambridge, and she was in the Blue Boat in 2008. And for me, I was like, wow, novice row. I didn't know anything about rowing, and here was this like amazing coach, and she had been in the Blue Boat in Cambridge, and I was like, this is really cool. And so that kind of was like a first, I don't know, idol, I suppose. And then when I was my novice year as well, the captain of Trinity was a girl called Sally O'Brien, who then came over to Cambridge, and she's still here now, and she was rowing, and she raced in the Blondie race. So I was then like, okay, even girls I rowed with, have come over here and done this. This is something that I could do. And I think that all kind of just led me over here, I think, because I finished in Trinity, and I knew I wanted to keep studying, and I definitely knew I wanted to keep rowing, and this was something that would have been a huge challenge for me, and yeah, I guess it enticed me over here for sure.
How different is Trinity lifestyle to Cambridge lifestyle? Like I remember thinking when I moved, I was like, oh, there's no difference. Like, what are they talking about? And then I moved, I was like, there's a difference.
In terms of like rowing, or in terms of everything?
Like life, like studying, like everything to do with like the difference between Irish education and UK education.
Yeah, I think it's definitely different. I mean, I think it's hard to compare doing a postgrad over here. I think I look at the undergrads here, and I'm like, I would not have been up for that. I don't know. They're very diligent, and I suppose that's the nature of being an undergrad in Cambridge. But I was like, I'm very glad to have had the years that I had in Trinity beforehand. Not saying that Trinity's piss take, but and it suited for me at the time. But yeah, no, it is different. But what's great about it is that, and one of my favorite things about rowing and about sport in general is that you go to a new place that's completely different, and into a completely different system, like an education system, and you can join the rowing club, and that's still going to be the exact same. And that's what's been great for me, definitely throughout the 6 or 7 years I've been rowing, because I didn't go straight into Cambridge. After I left Trinity, I went to New Zealand for a year and worked down there, and I was rowing down there, and obviously didn't know anybody down there. But it's still the same thing. You just show up to the rowing club, and you're like, okay, here's a group of 20 girls that are immediately going to be your best friends, and you don't even have to try, and that's just what's so great about the sport for me, definitely. So yeah, that was really nice to have that continued over into Cambridge.
Obviously you started off rowing in Trinity. I know that you've mentioned you're a novice, and for anybody that's listening that is new to rowing, that's the first year of rowing. Did you do any sports before, or what did you do when you were growing up?
Yeah, I didn't do anything like to exceptional level. I mean, I was always like doing sports, did a lot of like GAA, hockey, tennis, that kind of stuff, running. My parents have like, my mom is very sporty, and so it would have always been kind of just something that she sent us off doing, you know, summer camps and after school and that kind of thing. So it was definitely always something that was just like part of my life, but never, definitely not something that I was like particularly focused on, I think, in terms of like, I don't know, yeah, ambitions. But I think that was a good starting point, really, because I don't think I would have gotten as far in rowing if I wasn't like if my first step wasn't just to enjoy it. You know, if I had gone into it being like, I want to achieve this and this and this, for me, that's not a motivator. That wouldn't have motivated me enough to keep going at it. And so I think having the first background while I was growing up of just like being in sports because it's fun, and really loving team sports, and just having all your friends coming from sports, I think that's a really great way to keep, I suppose, entice people, maybe especially girls, into sports, and then the seriousness of it can build from there. And that was the same as in Trinity, you know, like the novice program, learning to row, it's obviously more relaxed than the senior programs. And that was a really important year for me, just to see how fun rowing can be, and not have as much pressure on it. Obviously, we thought that the races we were doing were the most important races in the world, and novice head race in the middle of the winter against one other crew or whatever it was. But yeah, I think that was a really great starting point. And then I suppose as you get more committed to it, the seriousness and the intensity of it builds up.
You mentioned your mom. Like I know she was in hill running and represented Ireland. You know, and your grandmother as well playing hockey for Ireland. Like you've had some really good female like sporting role models. Like how important was that for you? Like growing up, like do you think you would have been in sport even if they? I'm not saying like they didn't exist, but if they didn't do what they did.
Yeah. No, I think hugely, and I think it's definitely been like, it's been so important for me to have that. I obviously didn't realize at the time, you know, I was a kid growing up, and what I just thought was normal was the fact that I was going to Camogie because my mom was going out running, and like, you know, it just felt completely normal, and it felt like that's what all moms did. And then I kind of, you know, came to secondary school and was like, oh, everybody else's mom is like maybe not doing that. And it was, I think I'm very lucky to have that baseline experience of just being like women competing in sports, and that just being a given, and that's what's being discussed at home, and that's what my parents are interested in and want me to be in. Yeah, and I think that just made it very natural for me, and made it also just something that, yeah, I saw both my parents, but I saw my mom, it being their source of social life and enjoyment, and what they do to relieve stress. You know, my mom come home from work and she'd be like, oh, I'm so stressed and whatever, and then she'd be like, I just need to go out for a run, I just need to go. And you know, at the time we were like, where's our dinner, come on mom. But it instilled in me that like sport is an outlet for like everything else that's going on in your life. And yeah, I think that's been hugely beneficial for me, and so supportive. You know, like it's so nice when you're starting into sport for your parents and your family to be so interested in it, and it, you know, them to say, oh, I'm so proud of you because you're doing this sport. It wasn't like, my mom was never really like, I'm so proud of you because of your academics or whatever, which I'm sure she is, but she was always just so interested and so proud in the sports, and I think, yeah, that all really fed into the degree to which I am interested in it.
It's all right. My mom is the exact same. Like sport, like you know, like she's like, yeah, it's really great. You graduated from college, like, but you know, and I'm like, all right, just because Danny won a county final, like, get over it.
Tell us a bit about your granny, because obviously, like, it's one thing, say, for your mom to have been involved in sport as you grew up, but like going back that far to saying your grandmother being involved in sport, it was obviously a completely different time. Like, I've talked to my granny about her being involved in sport, and like she'd be 88, 89 at the moment, and she said that they just used to play camogie and nobody kept score, and like the gear that they wore, like we wouldn't even dream of wearing stuff like that. And she's like, oh, well, we just used to play to like exercise, and we just used to run around the pitch like nobody kept count. And but the boys teams and the men's teams obviously were like so important, and she's like we were so involved in the like GA and fundraising and all this kind of stuff, and but they weren't, they got like nobody cares if they play. It was exercise.
My granny was the exact same. Like she, and I suppose all of my older generations of the family, it is very different, and she's so amazed to see what we have now. Like it was so exciting for her to watch it on TV and see that it's like getting the exact equal coverage on the BBC that the men's race was, and like for her, she was like, so you're going to race in the same day, you're going to race at the same distance and everything. I'm like, yeah, we are. And she just gets so much enjoyment out of that, like she absolutely loves to see that. And she was the same, like when she was like doing training and exercising and stuff when she was a kid, like it was all just it wasn't taken seriously, and it was like boys go and do their like races and their competitions, whatever, and then afterwards the girls can come out and just like have a kick around or whatever. And I think it's really nice, and I feel really happy to be able to be part of like what she can now see as how far that's come for women, for sure.
And how did she end up playing hockey and getting involved and obviously going to the level that she did? Like,
I don't know where this has come from. She actually didn't play hockey for Ireland. So I think this is like all stemmed from. Sorry, I'm really sorry.
That's okay.
Like she was really, really sporty, and but she didn't actually play hockey for Ireland. I think there's this Cambridge interviewer, and he just runs with stuff. So this is coming from him. But sorry.
That's fine.
This
That's so funny. No, that's totally fine. That is so funny because I've seen it in loads of places.
Let's definitely keep it in. Like, let's keep the myth alive.
Let's just go with it.
Let's just keep it going.
She's loving it. She's like, I did.
I've got my Irish jersey right here.
Yeah, because I was really interested to hear what it was like. Obviously, it's a totally different generation. I was like, how did it go that far? That is so funny that the story has grown legs a little bit.
Hugely, and I'm like, okay, whatever. It was like some local Cambridge newspaper, but now it's on bloody RTE, and I'm like, okay, whatever.
I think we've just showcased like what it was like maybe to play for Ireland at that time, because no one actually took records that a random woman has now been put in place in some of the Irish
squad.
So like Irish hockey team are going to be like trying to go through their records, find stuff that didn't actually happen.
That is so funny. Tell us a little bit about. We'll move on from that. So at least Granny's loving the sport. She may not have gone and played hockey for Ireland, but she still loves to see it. Tell us about kind of what the plans are. Obviously, you're over there for another little while, and you're still rowing. And I know that you where you competed at home internationals and that type of thing. So what are your kind of plans for rowing in the future, I suppose?
I mean, I don't really know. I think like there's a huge jump up to the senior level, for sure. And it's so exciting to watch the girls racing this weekend, and just in general having a squad of female Irish athletes, because we haven't had a group like we have right now in a long time, and that's just it's amazing for people like me to look at and to see how well they've done, and to have like rowed with a few of them. It's just like it's really, really great, and it's so exciting. But that is they're at a whole other standard for sure. But I think for me, I'm still in a place. I don't think I've reached the level. I haven't peaked, I've still got more motivation and drive to keep getting better. And I think I'm in a really good place for that, because, like I said, there's where I'm at, and then there's, the level that like the Emily Hegartys of the world are at. And being in a high performance program like this, where they really develop you and they really want to push to see how far you can get your standard up. That for me is just the perfect place to be, because I can just be within this program for the next few years and just see what happens, I suppose. And also just get the really amazing experience that rowing in Cambridge can give me. So I'm doing a PhD, so I'm going to be here for the next 2 years, and I'll just see what happens, I suppose.
Totally makes sense. What is it like, kind of the comparison from Cambridge to like from Trinity? Because I know, say that you're talking about the visualization and that type of thing, and it's not really something that we'd necessarily hear a whole lot about here, in relation to kind of prep and that. So how different is the setup in Cambridge, say from Trinity? And I know that you said you rode in New Zealand as well. So what have your different experiences been like?
Yeah, it's. I mean, the basics are still the same, but I guess everything's just a lot more focused, and then there's a lot more additional support as well. So, whereas I suppose in Trinity we would have done similar training, I guess when you're going out rowing and when you're on the erg, there's a really intense focus expected of you for like technical changes, and like giving like 110%. Like you come off the water and your brain is as fried as your body is, really, because they're like, it'd be very common for them to just be like shouting down the megaphone at one person about one specific thing about their catch for like 4 kilometers, and that person will be like crying at the end. But like they just their intensity of pushing on changes is really strong, and I suppose that's what gets everybody to make, because it's such a big program. Everybody comes from different places. Like you got people coming from school, you got people coming from international experiences in all different countries, and you need to get everyone rowing the same in quite a short space of time. I mean, peaking in March is quite early, and so it's very intense, the coaching, and it's the same on the ergs, like whereas maybe in Trinity we would have come and you have your session and you do it, and then you go home. Here it's like they're still expecting you to make technical changes on the erg, and they're shouting at you in the middle of a piece to like get your hands up quicker, and you're like, that's not what I'm thinking about right now. But yeah, so there's just a level of focus, I suppose, that's quite a bit different, and then I think it's kind of, the selection process is a bit more strenuous, because whereas we would have done things like seat racing and that kind of thing in Trinity, here it's like an ongoing process all year. So it's not really a case of you can slack off at the start of the year and then perform on one day. That's not going to get you anywhere in Cambridge. Like you have to, your selection is like an accumulation of everything that's happened over the course of the year, including like your erg tests and like erg sessions that happen on a weekly basis. Like your improvement across all of those weeks stands to you, and so you can't be like showing up for those half hours, and so yeah, those kind of things are a bit more intense. But then at the same time, there's so much support here, like this is a really big deal in Cambridge, and the university really support the race, and so there's loads of support in terms of like, we have a sports psychologist that talks to us like a couple of times a month, and you can come and see her like individually, and she really like is very honed in on like the different motivations for all the different athletes and how to get the crew together, and like individual support at the start of the year, which then turns into like crew support, like coming up to the racing and getting everybody on the same page mentally. And that's been a huge thing that I hadn't experienced previously, and a huge help. And then she will then communicate all that to the coaches as well. And it's like, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And just having access to like physios and nutritionists and that kind of thing, that, all of the resources, I suppose, that we are so, like, it's so lucky to have all that available to you. I guess all of those small things that might have been, not something that I would have thought about previously, they all just really get honed in on and help you push forward. And so it's a nice kind of mix of there being a huge amount of support, and the coaches aren't pitting athletes against each other. They just really want the best for all the athletes, and they want everybody to get as much out of them as they possibly can, combined with it being a very competitive group of women, and everybody wanting to win. And so those two things combine to just get the crew pushing up to as high a standard as possible.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, because obviously the setup over there and the kind of financial support sometimes that we see in the UK can be quite different to what we see in Ireland. I know in the US we can see a lot of financial support, and obviously the boat race is a big event, so it's something that's going to be that's going to be looked after, and making sure that you get the best out of your athletes. Like obviously it's, you know, the things that you're talking about in lines of support, and you know, it costs to put those in place, and obviously they have the resource that they can do that. What would you kind of say to maybe anyone that's interested in looking at going over to the UK to row, or, you know, particularly to Cambridge, because obviously, you know, we have lots of people involved in rowing here. Some people are rowing at university level and might kind of look at heading that way. You obviously sound like you've had a good experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would don't shy away from it. I think, you know, I was definitely nervous coming over, and I was like, oh geez, I'm going to get cut after like 1 week, you know, that's it, it's going to be over for me, I'm not going to be able to stand it. And I would just say that, like, it's hard coming from a country where the sport is smaller, and, you know, you've got less, like you say, all those things like support and that kind of stuff builds your confidence in you as an athlete, that people are believing in you. And so when you're coming from a smaller country or like smaller clubs, you mightn't have that sense of, yeah, I'm at a standard that is worth supporting. But just not to doubt in that, you know, because I think the rowing in Ireland is, it's getting so much bigger, and also just the standard that we are at as a country is quite good. Like, you know, and that's driven from the top. You can see that the girls on the Irish team, they're going over and they're really competitive, you know. So it's not like we're a small country that's kind of like dribbling in last. Like, we are very good, and that is filtering down through all the different universities and clubs and everything. So I would just say that we have a really good base to then be put into a situation where there's loads of support and there's loads of coaching, and for someone to then excel in it. You know, like, if you look at all the Irish people that have come over to somewhere like Cambridge, like Claire, myself, Sally, like all the girls that have come over have achieved, and so I would just say not to worry about the fact that you're coming into a program that's bigger. Like, you have the basics that you need to excel in it, and just be excited to kind of take the opportunities that are then being given to you.
Yeah, I think in relation to kind of the resources, like exactly what you're saying, like the standard of rowing in Ireland is quite competitive, and like I know that we've seen people go to different countries and compete at national championships and done well at national championships in countries across the world. Like the club rowing in Ireland is certainly not to be you know, dissed. Like, it's there, like the quality is there. I don't know what other word I was looking for there, but like, no, look, I mean, look, I've seen people go to different countries and do really well. Like, you know, people that have just come out from club programs and done quite well, and then like over in the US, like I was looking at over there, and kind of the standard that I saw was not streets ahead of like the Irish standard at all. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, this is interesting, because like, we're obviously such a like a much smaller country, and like, yeah, the volume of athletes are there, but the quality actually is not that different. No, just that, like, when you end up in a program, so if you have the basics and like as a country we're already like doing pretty well at rowing, and then you put athletes that are developed into a program where there's more support, I think there is kind of more marginal gain to be made, because you have the additional support that you haven't had maybe in club or university rowing in Ireland. So there's just kind of more opportunity to develop if you haven't been surrounded by, you saying, like those sports psychologists or nutritionists or whatever in your kind of earlier career.
I agree with that. Like, and it was daunting for me to rock up and be like, meet girls that you're like, yeah, I rode in Princeton, I rode in Brown, and I was like, oh sure. And they're like all these huge teams with like so many girls, and I'm like, wow, okay, they're all really good, but you know, we're competitive with them, and I was able to, I was at the same standard as them, and then, like you said, these girls have all had the experience of, you know, having people come and give them massages whenever they want, or, you know, they know all this, like, and so yeah, coming from a program that didn't have all that resources, and then being given all that, like my gains in that first 6 months was huge, because I was like, okay, I'm getting all of this input from all these different places. And that's really exciting.
Did you accidentally OD on the services? Were you, just go for a massage there every hour on the hour?
I was like, is this on call at all times?
Oh, my neck's at me, Michelle. Would you mind? It's just from leaning too far forward.
Yeah, I think sometimes like you're saying, like you're naming like universities in the States, and sometimes the name of the university almost sounds more intimidating than it actually is. Like, you actually go and watch some of the different clubs and universities, and you're like, oh, okay, it's like that's what it looks like in Ireland.
Yeah.
So it's not that much different. But thanks a million for taking the time to chat to us. Congratulations again on the win. Glad you gave us a good laugh anyway in relation to your poor grandmother.
Yeah. Look, she's living the high life now. She's rolling with it.
Yeah, definitely. Like, why not?
We're going to lead with that story. Like, we're going to be like, no, her grandmother definitely played for Ireland. I don't know what she's talking about.
Here we go.
Thanks a bit.
I'm gonna be going with this in my life.
Good luck with the rest of the time that you have over there, and we'll be certainly watching out for it. And thanks again for taking the time. Hopefully we'll start to see restrictions ease a bit more and there'll be more racing for everybody in the next couple of months.
Yeah, hopefully, God. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Caoimhe.
Thank you.